stats that only 17% of borrowers go back to the same lender.
What's called the berry button, big red button that I hit.
Hey, remember that?
Right?
And, oh yeah, I love.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Laugh, Lend, and Eat, the podcast. And I am sincerely thrilled to introduce our guest today. It's no one other than David Gandelman. How are you, David?
Great to be here, buddy. Thanks for having me on.
Oh no, it's my pleasure. And for those that may not know David Gandelman, he is a spiritual teacher and also a founder of meditation school based in Boulder, Colorado, right?
Yep, that's where I live these days. Yeah.
Do you like living in Boulder?
I love it. I've lived in a lot of places kind of all over the world, but I live right at the base of the mountains here. I'm looking at the mountains right outside my window right now.
Wow.
And it's a special place. I go hiking every day.
I do remember seeing something on Instagram, one of your stories where you're like, don't hate me, this is my world. And you were like hiking in the woods, whatever.
Yeah. Sometimes I take my cat. I actually have like a backpack for her. I put her in a backpack and I take her hiking. She loves it.
She likes hiking, huh?
She does.
That's awesome. Dude.
I know.
Awesome. So listen, I got a series of questions for you, right? Because we have a bunch of listeners. Most of them are business guys, mortgage people mostly, right? And some of the things that I've been working on the past several years for myself, right, is getting more grounded, getting more in tune with my life. You know, I'm probably at the end of my career now, got another 10 to 15 good years. The average age of a mortgage broker, by the way, David, is like 51, 52. And I'm now above that age. So
doing great.
So I know that my time is limited. So the last few years, I've really been focusing on what's more important than closing loans and meeting these deadlines. That's one of the things that got gravitated towards more meditation, more yoga, mind, body, and soul kind of connection. And I think I've been trying to move that into our spectrum of the mortgage industry more and more. And that's what really got me to you guys, right? And I want to kind of start off where I read something very interesting about you, right? Is that you started meditating at the age of 16. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, most 16-year-olds aren't meditating, Dave.
They're not. Well, hopefully they will be, hopefully more and more from start. I do work with a 17-year-old who is beginning down that path. But I picked up a book when I was 16 and on meditation, and something it was like a light bulb went off in me, and I went really, really deep into it, and it was transformational. I don't know why that happened. It felt a little bit more like a destiny.
Yeah.
Some random thing. Yeah.
Tell us, what was it that made you kind of want to meditate at that age? Because look, I was 16. I wanted to be a rock star, right? I was a bass guitar. I still am a bass guitarist, right? And so for me, everything was Rush, Geddy Lee, a few other bass players, jazz, that kind of stuff, but nothing like, hey, let's come and find my inner self.
Well, we're all wired differently. And I think I just had this kind of spiritual drive in me that just kind of ignited at 16. I can't explain why. I read a few pages of Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now. Mm-hmm. And, I started trading stocks at 13. I was into politics by 13, 14. So I grew up on the East Coast in New Jersey. There was no personal growth, development, meditation, spirituality around me at all. And so maybe the outlets I was looking at, like the deeper parts of life, why does society function the way it does? And then when I hit 16 and I picked up a meditation book, it just took me a level deeper. And I just read something along the lines of, our minds are constantly projecting into the future and back into the past, and we're rarely in this moment. And that struck so true to me that it just like shifted me in that moment. It was a pretty huge epiphany. And then I just started meditating a lot, reading a lot of books, going deeper and deeper. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't go do stupid shit and become, I went to college. I did all the things all the kids do. I was playing ice hockey, but then, I started to mature more and more into it.
Now, your meditation also took you to India. I read that also in your bio.
Yeah. So I lived in India for a while.
Now, how was that experience? Like, I mean, and I don't know the chronological order, how old you were at that point. I imagine you graduated Rutgers, right?
Yeah, so after college, I lived in Spain for a year, and then and then India. So I think I was about 23 when I got to India. Super idealistic, and I had a degree in philosophy.
Okay.
Thought I knew everything, as most 23-year-olds. If you're 23 and you're listening to this and you think you know everything, oh, life's gonna kick you in the nuts.
Oh yeah, trust me, man. There's a song actually. I just quoted it recently by the Byrds called "I was so much older than I'm younger than that now."
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's so true. Is you don't really realize it when you get older. Like you're like, oh my god, I don't know anything, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you go from thinking you know everything to knowing you know nothing. I think that's a very healthy arc of growth. Yes.
So tell me about India. How long were you in India?
I spent a year there. I would come back and forth for a couple of years, but over like a 3-year period, I spent at least a full year in India, lived in ashrams almost the entire time, practicing Vedanta and Zen and
Wow.
learning Hinduism and all the Indian philosophies, doing a lot of meditation retreats and yoga and sitting around cafes and pontificating.
Now, I mean, did the temperature bother you? Because it's like I know when I go back home, it's like really prohibitive, right? The heat and the humidity.
Is that where you're from?
Well, I'm from Pakistan, but it's right next door.
Same, yeah. Well,
Right?
it was the same country until I think the 1950s, right?
1947.
47, yeah.
My dad reminds me of that every day.
That's right. That's right. I was up mostly in the Himalayas and up in Rishikesh, and so the temperature, yeah, it could be an issue at times, but it wasn't. I was okay with it, and I just loved being there. I love India so much. I took a retreat group to Nepal and Bhutan late 2019, and I had another group planned for 2020, which obviously we had to cancel, but hopefully next year we'll be doing India and or Nepal. So planning some retreats, taking folks back there.
When you do these retreats, do you find like being in different environments enhances the meditation?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you can get people out of their like everyday grind and surrounded by other people who are interested in personal growth, because you're probably not just surrounded by a bunch of people super enthusiastic about growth, right? You're just surrounded by family, friends, coworkers. But when you're with a group of 15, 20 people and everyone's there to develop and you don't know each other, there's no judgment. It just makes it's a really good recipe for making a breakthrough. And it's just a ton of fun, just traveling and meditating. And
I gotta ask you this because I saw that on your website about that you were going to go to Nepal, I think, or where that maybe, I'm not sure. Himalayas, I know that.
Yeah.
Do you ever have somebody that like say, "Oh my God, I shouldn't have come. This isn't what I
expected."
Never, right?
Time. Not a single person ever. Not just knock on wood, that could happen. There's always one complainer, or somebody who's having a hard time, or someone who's allergic to everything, somebody who's not quite getting it. But the experiences are so fun.
Yeah.
I've never had somebody like really, really not want to be there. Not yet anyway, and hopefully it doesn't happen. If they're going to spend that much money, to go that far across the world, and they know me already, they've probably gotten over enough hurdles where that's not going to happen.
Right. I know I used to do a retreat years ago. It was actually with I forgot what they're called, but they're not Catholic priests, but they're some sort of priest like that. But it was during the wintertime up in the mountains of West Virginia.
Oh, cool.
And it was like 3 days, you know what I mean? But you basically just unplugged everything. And it was like, you get out of there, you're like, why can't the whole world just be like that?
Yeah, well, we want to take the retreat energy and bring it back into our lives, right? That's really the hard part, is because I've seen people be angels on a retreat and shitheads in real life, because people respond differently under pressure and stress and anxiety, and so in their daily lives they could be kind of rough around the edges. They get to the retreat and they're all calm and happy, but that's not necessarily who they always are. So the retreat is a reprieve from the world. It's also a training ground, but you got to bring that into every single day, and then your whole life becomes a retreat. I
That's a
have
good way to look at it.
I have a client of mine who's like, "How come you never answer my emails?" She's lovely. I love her, by the way. But she always gets upset. Why don't you answer any of my emails? I'm like, because I'm on a retreat all the time.
Now you left India and you come back to the States, right? Now, how do you make this meditation like your journey, your vocation, right?
It's
Because
hard.
because it can't be easy doing what you're doing.
Well, what I did is I actually spent 7 years in Hawaii learning the intuitive and healing arts. So India was the kind of philosophical groundwork, Eastern traditions, and then Hawaii was the more, let's say India was more the masculine and Hawaii was more the feminine aspect of the personal development work, the healing side. And so I did that. I ran the meditation school in Hawaii for a number of years, and then I eventually moved to New York for a little while and started developing my own teachings and practice in school. And podcasting didn't exist, right? Or YouTube or anything when I started. So my career didn't exist. So I never really understood where it was going. And that was difficult, but also probably good, because then I just kept following my passion versus like, oh, there's a path already, I need to go that direction. Because I see a lot of young people, and I've been on podcasts where someone's, just getting started and maybe they don't have the life experience yet. And they're like, oh, but everyone podcasts or everyone YouTubes or everyone's a teacher. So now I'm a personal growth teacher. And I'm like, yeah, dude, you got to go through the journey first. You got to get kicked in the balls and a couple times. And they skip that part because now all the technology is available. And sometimes society can't tell the difference between fame and wisdom. Like, oh, I have a lot of followers now, it means I must have something of value. And we know that's not necessarily true. So I'm glad there wasn't that available to me. So I had to go kind of the long way, do everything in person for years. And then I transitioned. So everyone wants to get there like right away. And, there's nothing in life that comes right away. What's that saying? Overnight success takes about 10 years.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean,
I'm sure it's the same in the mortgage business in real estate.
I've been doing this for 28 years,
Yeah.
And it is by far like technology has sped everything up, made everything more complicated. And I'm just like, how are these guys doing it? I mean, I couldn't even originate a loan today if I had to. So thank God I'm not depending on writing loans anymore. You know what I mean? But
yeah. Well, you're still in an industry that also depends a lot on personal relationships.
Right.
Somebody's making a purchase of that size. Trust is paramount, right?
Well, it's the largest transaction they're ever going to make in their life. I mean, whether it's their first house for 100,000 or their third one for $1 million, they don't. Most people don't have investments higher than their houses. So it's a lot of trust, brother.
Yeah,
So,
that's very true.
This is about you, not about me.
Come on, what's my interest rate here?
I'll get you a good rate. If you want to buy something, I can hook you up. Don't worry.
Yeah, in Boulder, where the medium home price is $72 gazillion.
Right. Like years ago, I mean, all that area in Colorado was nothing. It was nothing. And then all of a sudden, the last 10 years has been a boom. It's crazy.
There's not a single house for sale in my entire neighborhood.
Yeah. And that's, I think the whole country is going through that right now, by the way.
Yeah.
The whole country, everywhere I go, because we're nationwide, and they're telling me the same thing. There's no inventory. And you're like, you know what? Hang tight. It's coming. Be ready.
Yeah. So I've been trading stocks since I was 13. And so I'm not that old, but I've seen some cycles. I've seen a few cycles. And there is no substitute for seeing markets crash yourself and just feeling all of your money turn to nothing.
Right.
And just like that in the pit of your stomach, like, oh. And history definitely repeats itself. And I have so many friends who this is their first rodeo, and they're like, crypto, this stock, that stock, this stock, when everyone and their mother is investing with no experience, you're like, uh-oh. Just
Yeah.
like when the housing market crashed and everyone was buying, people who had they should not have been owning all this real estate, had all these subprime mortgages. And so I feel the same way now. You can't time it, but life repeats itself over and over in certain cycles. And so,
What do you think about cryptocurrency? I mean, that's a great topic. I mean, it's not on my list, but you brought it up, right?
honestly, I don't invest in it because as hard as I try, I'm just not smart enough to understand it. And I try to go by Warren Buffett tenets of
Okay.
invest in what you understand.
Yeah.
Could I probably get a great return in the next 3 months? Yeah. But then, the hardest thing in the world is timing, right? So someone smarter than me will sell first, and then who knows?
That's the part where I always get stuck is I don't know when to sell. My greed kicks in, right?
Yeah. So
and then greed turns into regret.
the saying is like pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. And I think that's true for all areas of life, right? Not just in investing.
Yeah.
And then I think again, Warren Buffett, when he says, when people are greedy, you should be afraid. And when people are afraid, you should be greedy. I don't think he means actually be greedy, but
right. There's opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think life principles never really change. The circumstances change, but the principles never change. And the way you approach investing is probably a reflection of how you approach a lot of the other areas of your life. Like, are you patient? Do you take your time? Do you have intention? Is there ethics? All of that you could take into investing, relationships, career, personal development, right? It's all, you see it again and again. And one of the things Warren Buffett says that I love is he goes, you can always find smart people, but finding someone with integrity, that is really what you're looking for. Because if someone is smart without integrity, that is a weapon of mass destruction.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how
I try on the Wall Street. So anyway. Yes, good stuff there, man. All right, let's get back to this because this is all leading up to one topic that I got to talk to you about, right?
Sure.
All the roads, like I charted this out. Insight Timer, right? This is where I heard of you, right?
Yeah.
And how did you? I mean, I know you're on other platforms, right? At least I think you are.
Sure. Yeah, I am.
I just heard of this Insight Timer, like maybe I think it was October 2019. When I was at some conference, we were talking about meditation, and someone says you should do Insight Timer.
Yeah. So I was at a family gathering, I don't know, 6 years ago, and I had my own platform I was developing. Somebody said to like a cousin of mine who I had never met, "Hey, David teaches meditation." And they were like, "Oh, what's your platform?" And I showed her, and she was like, "Oh, it's $10. I use Insight Timer. It's free." And I was like, all right, well, what's this Insight Timer? So I went on there and it was very small. It wasn't tiny, but it was pretty small still. And I was like, oh, this looks like a good place to put some meditations on. And I think there were 400 teachers on there at the time. And now there's like 8 or 10,000 teachers
crazy
on Insight Timer. And so I kind of grew with it. And I have a close relationship with the management team and the founders, and I love being a part of that movement. It's the most used meditation app in the world. So maybe like the Headspaces and the Calms, maybe they have more revenue, but in terms of meditation minutes used on meditation apps, Insight Timer, I think accounts for like 62 or 64% of all the meditation apps combined in the world. And there's 2,000 of them. And Headspace and then Calm take up another chunk, and then you got a whole bunch with a small amount, but Insight Timer by far has the most usage. And they're just a great company, great culture. They never make a decision that's just putting money first. They're always putting the users, the content creators, the teachers first. And I've worked with a bunch of meditation apps, some of the biggest ones, other ones, they do not approach it that way. It's just business as usual for them. And so I stopped contributing to them because I was like, I don't like that energy.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So with Insight Timer, there is something similar. And I know it's going to sound funny when I say it to you, but it really is the truth when I was putting this interview together, right? is that there's Forrest Gump and Inside Timer have something in common. That one line is that it's very similar to a box of chocolates.
Yeah.
When you open it up like the teacher, you never know what you're going to get.
That's its strength and its weakness. So Insight Timer's weakness, and they know this, I've told them, they get the feedback, is that there's so much that it could take so long to find something that's like relevant to you or that resonates. So there's like there's it's a double-edged sword of having too much content, right? It's like you go on YouTube and you're like, how do I find something? And you hope the algorithm works in your favor. So that is definitely a thing. And so I always tell people, yeah, you want to find a teacher or two, a guide that you really resonate with, that works for you, and then run with that for a while until it doesn't, and then move on to the next thing.
My first few months, I had like 35 teachers, right? like now I'm down to about 6. You know what I mean? And you're one of them, by the way, right?
Thank you.
And so it's like it took me a while to kind of like figure all this stuff out. It was just like, I know like one of the meditations you did for the morning one for recently, there was a morning meditation, right? David G was on there.
Yes, 20. It was like a 30 days of morning meditation.
Right, I think it was January. It's probably January or something.
Yeah, lots of great. Russell Brand was on there. Yeah, Ariana Huffington.
Sarah Blondin was on there. Is that her name? Sarah Blondin.
Sarah Blondin. She's lovely. Love her. Right? Yeah.
Like the sap in the nature trees or whatever she talks about.
Yeah.
I always like get caused up in those worlds, and I get out of it. But there was this Norwegian guy. Right? I can't remember his name, but he had us breathing so hard.
Oh, Wim Hof. Yeah.
A lot of us were on the comments saying, I just hyperventilated trying to keep up with your breathing exercise.
Yeah. So Wim Hof, I don't know, he's like super world famous he holds a lot of Guinness Book of World Records for climbing Mount Everest and hiking through the Sahara. He raised his body temperature 1 degree while under ice for like an hour and 30 minutes. Holding his breath. He is superhuman, this guy. And a lot of the biohackers are really into Wim Hof. He's got something special going on for sure. He's a unique dude, but he teaches these very intense breathing techniques so that you can then jump into ice water or,
Have you ever done that?
I did it in Bali a few times when I was hanging in Bali. Yeah, I don't like it that much. I have a buddy here who does it almost every day, and I'll go with him. We'll go to the canyon here in Boulder, and he'll jump in the ice, and I'll just watch. I'm a skinny guy. I don't have much meat. It hurts, I
mean, you ought to throw your cat in there. See how the cat likes it.
She'll hate me forever. And it's so funny. I can see out my window, and that guy I just said who jumps in every day, he literally just pulled up.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Now you seem to have, well, at least for me, right? And you talk about resonating and stuff, but you seem to have the perfect voice, the perfect rhythm, right? But you also have something else, David, that was really interesting about you. And I don't mean to like blow your ego up or anything.
My head is growing as you speak.
I am not trying to do that, okay, brother? But you had this kind of like a everyday man's approach to meditating.
Yeah.
It was refreshing. It was like, dude, you got all these things in your head. Don't worry about it. Don't give a F, whatever, and just keep thinking or whatever. And the other thing was that you talked about owning it. And I love the fact that you said, hey, you got all this noise. It's your noise. Own it. I'm obviously paraphrasing you, right?
Yeah.
But that was the message, and it was perfect for me, at least.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. And well, 2 things. One, I think I came upon that style just from, I had learned from the hardcore Vedantists in India, very traditional meditation styles, Vipassana, Zen, Vedanta. And then, like I said, in Hawaii, the more intuitive arts side of things. And all of it is amazing. And then I realized none of it is me. Right? They're all phenomenal methods taught by beautiful people. I was taught by a lot of women in Hawaii. For almost all my teachers were women. And in India, they were all men. All men in India, all women in Hawaii. And I was like, wow, I get both sides of this. And then I get to find myself. And what I see a lot of meditators do is they hold themselves hostage in like a certain style or posture. Like I need to have inner peace and be this way and be really calm. And kind of wild. They're like trying to control themselves and force inner peace. And you could do that for a while, but the minute you let go, everything that you've suppressed is going to start coming out. And then maybe you become like a passive aggressive meditator, you know, or you're judgmental.
Passive aggressive meditator.
Yeah, like I could tell that person's got a lot of thoughts. They're not as far as I am, you know. All of a sudden, the toothpaste will come out of the bottle some way. You squeeze it, it's going somewhere. And so and there was a certain point where I realized, oh, it's not about becoming a perfect Buddha. It's just about deepening into my own energy and then helping other people do that as well. And that gave me a lot of freedom.
Do you think?
Oh, I like to be funny, you know, or I like to curse, or I like to whatever.
Well,
this is me. Yeah.
The thing is, you laugh at your own jokes while you're meditating.
I do. I can't help it.
You're like this little side voice comes out of nowhere,
Yeah.
and you're like chuckling to yourself. I'm like, David, that's not really that funny, man. I'm meditating.
So one of the things that happens in meditation is immediately. So I used to teach in LA a lot in person, and I have these rooms full of people. And the minute I would say, go ahead, everyone's relaxed. The minute I say, let's go ahead, close your eyes, everyone becomes stiff as a board. It's just like a Buddha statue wannabes.
Right.
And it's just unnatural. And so I found when we take something seriously, we harden it. So if I have pain I'm working on and I take it really seriously, it's hardening, right? If I have these thoughts I'm struggling with, I take them seriously, I'm fighting them. It actually gives them more power. And when we step back and we could laugh at ourselves and ease up, we actually take power away from those things, and then we can really reconcile them. And I don't mean like being disassociated, laughing at pain, pretending it has nothing to do with you. There's a more nuanced place where you're like, the universe is a big fucking place, and what do I know? And look how seriously I'm taking this. Let me back up and just chuckle a little bit about how I've lost myself to these thoughts. And I think that eases the tension. So a lot of laughing in the beginning of meditation, and then we get really into the deep end in a reflective state towards the end.
You bring up a good point. There are some people on that when I'm meditating with them, they want you like be in a certain position, sit upright, do this, do that. And then I'm so focused on how am I sitting, or this one guy had me lay down and wanted my wrist to be palms facing upward towards the ceiling, and it wasn't comfortable. And I was like,
Yeah.
dude, it's not, I was like, I can't focus on what I'm trying to do if I'm focused on my wrist hurting.
And you have to say this one mantra in this very specific way.
Right. See,
yeah.
David G is kind of slick like that on his. Like he did this 15-minute thing, but 7 minutes is total silence. You're on your own. Supposed to be chanting this mantra over and over again. I was like, David G's slick, man. You figured this thing out.
That's right. There you go, David G. I did create a course where it's not out yet, but where there's going to be about 12 minutes of silence right in the middle. So you could just be
Thanks
with
for the
yourself.
warning. It's
Yeah,
always
no
it's always like
mantra.
the Sopranos ending. You know what I mean? Like you're like, hey, did he leave me? Where'd it go? For a
There you
second,
go.
like when I first did that one with David G, I was like, hold on, where's the music? Where's anything?
Yeah, gone. He's just gone. He's eating a sandwich.
Right. I'm like, the picture's not
He's
paused
like,
or something.
He's like, you still meditating over there? Oh, good. I'll be back. I got to write some emails.
Now, how do you pick the music for your meditation? Because for me, I'm a big music guy, right? Being a musician, right? So I'm really, really in tune to the music that's going on around. And some of your meditation doesn't have music, but I know
Yeah.
some of them do.
Honestly, it's so hard that sometimes, a lot of times I don't put any in these days. But I have a friend, Josh, who lives right across the way, who's a musician, opera singer. He's been making me some recently. I have a guy in Argentina. Sometimes I hire to make some, but it's really tricky to get just the right sound to go with the meditation. And then also music can put people in a very specific state. So if I started playing 50s romantic music, you're going to feel a certain way, or, rap or rock. And so I'm very cautious about that. Now, if I'm doing a sleep meditation, then it's nice to have a track and then it's going to lullaby you out to sleep. But I use music less and less in the daytime meditations because it just, it ignites or triggers something in people, and I want them to have their own authentic experience. So I've been using less and less over time recently.
There is more and more really cool music also, because I've noticed that on Insight Timer. There's a guy named Locke Kelly, I think.
Yeah, La Kelly's a meditation teacher. He's great. Yeah.
And he did one where he's like, disconnect the heart or disconnect the upper mind and go to the heart. He's got this really funky mute, and I love it.
I think it's fantastic. If you can partner up with a musician and make something that's like directly correlated to what you're doing, I think it's great.
Yeah.
And there's also music just to maybe like, yeah, touch each energy center, maybe music for the heart, right? That just really resonates there. I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
So let me ask you, you know, we're not going to talk forever, right? So I'm going to try to get some really good questions in now that I should come back to the list that I made. How much meditation should the average guy target? Like, you know, like is there a number that you prescribe that or is there just something that feels good for everybody?
If you're a mortgage guy from 35 to 55 years old, you should be meditating 17 minutes. No, I honestly, I don't approach it that way at all. In my experience, obviously at the beginning, you want to set a timer, because if you don't, it's almost like exercise. Until you get over a certain hump, you'll quit because it could be a little bit painful, or you'll find resistance. But then after a certain point in your meditation kind of life cycle, you sit longer and longer and longer intuitively. So what I find for myself is maybe I sit less often, but I might sit for an hour, 2 or 3 hours. Whereas other people, they're starting off, 5 minutes a day, same time a day, every day. The hard part about the 5 minute a day kind of deal is like, your mind is not really going to settle in 5 minutes. It's like, you don't want your sex to last 5 minutes, probably your meditation either. Right. On occasion, it's all right, but not as a rule, There's no way to get that intimate with yourself that fast.
What about so, I mean, sex and meditation, I mean, it's a great connection, right? Morning or night? Or
day, right? Whatever you prefer. Yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, because seems to be a correlation now also in my mind. I can definitely see it.
If you had to choose, I would say morning, but no fast and hard rule. Both, preferably. I think morning is really, really vital, just because you've got this day ahead of you and you're setting an intention, or you're not. And it's hard to set a clear intention without a clear mind. And you're not going to naturally have a clear mind, because, well, most people won't. They just don't. They just wake up and there's just noise and they're just thinking about everything. Yeah. And you have to rein that in. If you just hang out, you're not going to get exercise, right? It's like, you're not just going to, your pectoral muscles aren't going to grow by looking out the window. So same with your consciousness. Like, it's not going to sharpen, it's not going to widen without cultivating it. And meditation is the cultivation of awareness. That's what it is.
I just remember on one of your meditations for the morning one, you talked about how you get out of bed, the noise. Now I'm going to add some donuts to it, some coffee to it, some news.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I was like, hey, he's describing my mornings.
Exactly.
Not funny, man.
You're digesting. So you're mentally digesting, right? So physically you're eating, but then mentally you're eating, and then you're digesting all of that information, all of that energy. And the tricky part about that is your mind has much more ability. It can digest so much more than your stomach. You eat fine. You could eat twice as much food as normal, but that's about it, or 3 times. Then you're full and you're like heavy and you're hurting, right? But mentally, you can go all day and watch the news nonstop. You can talk nonstop. You can listen to people talk nonstop and just absorb. And you don't realize how fat your head is getting.
Wow.
You need to lose psychic weight. Most people I know are psychically overweight. They're just heavy with way too much information, way too many thoughts. And because everyone else around them is as well, they don't realize that it's an issue.
We had a gentleman here who's the owner of a mortgage company out of New Jersey, actually, Animac, Joe Panabianco, a really nice guy. And he's talked about meditation, because we've talked about meditation, right? And you'll appreciate this being an ice hockey player. He related to as the Zamboni machine.
I like that.
Right? The hockey players being my thoughts, and then the Zamboni machine comes out and smooths everything out again, and that's the meditation, right? And so that the hockey players come back out again. And I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense, right?
Thanks, Joe from Jersey. If the NHL ever asked me to come teach, I'm using that analogy, buddy.
Isn't that cool? I mean, because
I
it
love
made
it.
so much sense, because that's the way my mornings are. Like I wake up and everybody's like kicking their each other's ass in my head. And it's like all these thoughts, and I'm not even off the pillow yet. Right. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, now what do I do? And luckily, I mean, I did find meditation. So my morning is a really very strict ritual now,
Oh, good.
where it's like boom, boom, boom. And I'm in my little thing. My dog has been fed and he's got his little bone on the side. And then I'm like zoning out for anywhere between 35 to 50 minutes.
Oh, amazing. I'm so glad to hear you're meditating that long.
Well,
That's
I've been doing it
wonderful.
for almost 3 years now, pretty consistently. And I got to admit, the Insight Timer, turned on to that a while ago. Now, here's the other thing about Insight Timer, right? It's kind of addictive,
Yeah, because it's like YouTube. You're like, oh, what's the next thing?
right? And then you start watching your time. Like, oh, I only did
That too.
22 minutes. I better do 40 today to make sure my average stays on track.
Oh, I see. So
Like a numbers
it's
guy like me who's like type A, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
can I beat the 46 hours that I did in January if I only got 30 days instead of 31 days?
Oh, I see. I see. So you got vanity metrics going.
Right. Right. So it's like, how, I mean, is that kind of like opposite of what it should be doing?
Yeah, it's totally useless. Yeah, it's a complete waste of time. It's really not, whether you meditate 40 hours or 60. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna be the thing.
Right.
It's really about the quality.
What I started doing was I started editing stuff down on my session logs that I felt were fair. So like when I fall asleep too quickly to a meditation, I actually delete that meditation off my log.
So what's interesting is it sounds like the way you perceive meditation is something that can be quantified over time. Like, oh, this many hours, this many days, this many months. You're quantifying your meditation practice. And I think what maybe you should be looking for more is a qualitative practice.
I think Insight Timer did that though. Prior to Insight Timer, I'd never
Yeah.
looked at it that way. That's what I was getting at.
Sure. Well, they do that, right? Because people like it. There's a lot of people out there with A-type personalities that want to measure, and I understand measuring is good. What gets measured gets managed, as they say. I get it. But I think for yourself intuitively at a certain point, you have to go, is this really benefiting me, or is it actually some kind of a distraction?
Yeah.
Or, putting brownie points, giving myself brownie points, badges.
I was actually last week I was thinking I should just turn off this whole timer thing and not measure my time anymore, because for me it's like I just enjoy it, right? To me it's like I can see the difference in my day before meditation and after meditation. It's as clear as day. I mean, and I'm at the point now where I know I'm hooked on it, because when I don't do it, my days I can always feel is a little wobbly. And I literally have to stop myself when I come to the office and kind of like, okay, I need 15 minutes at least.
Yeah, otherwise maybe you get frustrated more easily. Somebody triggers you, you don't think as clearly, you don't know what your intention for the day is, you don't have a clear vision for what you're creating, all of those things. Absolutely. There's so many byproducts to meditation. It's incredible. And I don't think humans necessarily needed it as much in the past when we lived in communion with nature, but now we're such mental creatures, it's gotten completely out of control. So everyone's meditating because they're looking for some balance and connection. And so I think a good way to put it for your audience is like, when you meditate, it's like you're plugging back into this source of energy that gives you life. And one of the ways you can look at it is like silence, for example, right? So all day you're making noise or experiencing noise. You're making noise or experiencing noise. But when you're meditating, you're plugged into this field of silence, and it actually gives you energy and heals the body and the mind. And same with stillness. All day you're moving. All day you're always moving, mentally, physically, emotionally moving. But all movement needs stillness, right? All sound comes out of silence.
Yeah.
So you're only playing with half the equation here. So there's being and there's doing. And if you're just a doing machine, eventually you're just going to be piled on with stress and anxiety.
I remember actually one of my meditations. This is, I've been meditating for a couple of years, right? But this happened recently, like maybe 90 days ago, that I realized I was still during my meditation. Like my body was not moving. And as a kid, I'll never forget, one of my cousins bet me $5. I was like maybe 12 years old or 11 years old, and he was like 30. And he goes, I bet you can't be still for 5 minutes. Here's $5. And I couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it.
I was on the beach with a cousin of mine, and he said, I just tried to meditate. I couldn't take 3 breaths without getting lost. This thing is hard, this meditation thing. I was like, yeah, well, imagine you didn't exercise for your entire life. How hard would those first 5 push-ups
Right.
be? So it's kind of like that for a lot of people. So they're very intimidated. And the other thing that happens is they're sitting on a boatload of pain and they don't realize it. They've suppressed it for decades, right? Oh, thanks, David. And so great, love this podcast. This guy's telling me I'm in pain. He doesn't know me. Fuck this guy.
We're gonna stop right now.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. I've actually had a really good conversation early on in January. We had a guest on here, Vivian, and she had written a book about being divorced with single and then having to bury her ex-husband.
Ouch. Yeah.
Right? And the book was amazing. It was mind blowing, and we started going down this path together about her book. And I looked, I said, Vivian, I said, it's getting depressing just talking to you about this shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, also when somebody's still in some level of pain, you can feel that in their energy, and maybe you start feeling, you start taking it on or feeling it
Right.
inside yourself. And so when people start meditating in the beginning, if there is a lot of pain, what happens is they close their eyes and all that pain starts to rise to the surface, and it comes out in the form of thoughts, ruminating thoughts. Maybe like you're lost in a set of thoughts, you're just blaming somebody, or you're arguing,
Mhm.
or you're in self-pity, or you're worried. And those thoughts probably have nothing real to them. Except they're given oxygen from the pain, and you don't realize the correlation. And so when you heal your pain, naturally the noise in your head will subside. So if there's a lot of excess noise, it's possible that there's some suppressed pain, and that, like I said, squeezing that toothpaste bottle, that's the only place it can come out is in
Wow.
ruminating thoughts. So
Wow.
people think, oh, I'm just having these thoughts. They don't realize that there's this rumination is happening because there's probably some unconscious pain.
Right.
And that's when we get real deep in meditation. That's when we find freedom.
Now, you also said in your 21 day that sometimes those thoughts are just things that are reminding us of things we have to do. I think that was you, right? Or was that somebody else?
Reminding us of things we have to do. I would phrase it more when we have a lot of thoughts. Like, say, for example, everybody listening to this, you probably have at least one set of ruminating thoughts today, like something that you think about again and again, over and over. You keep having the same conversation or the same worry. So what I like to do with my students is I like to have them freeze that sequence of thoughts, kind of like on the screen of their mind's eye, right? So we have 2 eyes to see the physical world, 1 eye to see the inner world. So when we close our physical eyes, we awaken that inner eye, and that's where we're meditating from. So let me take that sequence of ruminating thoughts, and instead of trying to pray it away or meditate it away, I'll say my mantra enough times so that that shitty sequence of thoughts disappears. It'll come back the moment you stop. So instead of fighting it, let's bring it right to the front of our mind, the screen of our mind. Let's look directly at it, and let's ask it, what are you made of? So this is where most people get lost, is they think it's about what the thoughts are about, and it might not be. So maybe you keep thinking about, oh crap, I have to go to the store later, I have to pay these bills, right? But
Yeah.
then when you look closely at the thoughts, you're like, oh, those thoughts are made of anxiety. Oh, and the anxiety is made of pain, and the pain came from something that has nothing to do
That's awesome.
with what's going on here. I was with some family recently on a trip, and they survived the Holocaust, and they would get irritated about like what's on the menu at the restaurant or some other thing, and you can see this irritation coming out. But I could see like that's Holocaust pain, has nothing
Wow.
to do with us being 10 minutes late or what's on the menu. When somebody's really at peace with themselves, the menu sucks, the Uber is late, things didn't work out, you're still calm.
Yeah.
But when there's pain inside, anything and everything can turn into a trigger, and there's always someone to blame. And what I see now, on like a big scale, is like people use politics to run that pain through, like
Sure.
super intense blame, or they use the financial markets to like run their stress through.
Oh
and
yeah.
use it as like a proxy, as an excuse. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you said something interesting because you say a lot of interesting things, so I'm not going to stop saying that shit. But you were talking about in your 21-day challenge, right? Before you talked about the T.S. Eliot poem, which was really moving, but the part that you talked about was uncovering. I believe you were talking about that, right? Coming back home to where we start from. This is
Yeah.
kind of like where we were. So it wasn't like we changed anything. We just kind of, and I think Sarah Blondin also talks about this.
She does.
Kind of uncovering what we already were. It's not like we become somebody new.
Right.
Which is what when I actually read the because I actually went and found that Little Gidding by T.S. Eliot, right? I started reading the whole thing because now I got to find out more about it, and so it just takes you deeper and deeper. But it really, to me, life is about almost like letting go who I think I'm supposed to be, and just being who I was supposed to be in the beginning before I put all this BS on top of myself.
It's like the statue of the David, Michelangelo's David, right? He said that David was already there. He just had to take away all the pieces that weren't.
Oh wow.
And yeah, there's a great quote. Most people are inventing themselves, and very few are discovering themselves. And we live in a society where a lot of people, like on social media or wherever, they're inventing themselves. And the more you do that, the more masks you put on, the harder it becomes to get in touch with yourself, and the more pain accumulates. I always come back to pain.
Now, it was interesting when you said that, because recently, or not recently, God, I got my head straight because it's this whole 1 year pandemic. But my last headshots that I had done, right, for these pictures that we do, right, the guy had me do one with just T-shirt. And when we were going through everything, I was like, you know what? I love the T-shirt one. I don't even like the suit and tie guy anymore. And he says that's because that's who you really are. You're finally who you're finally where you're supposed to be. You know what I mean?
Corona uncovered you.
Yeah, it's like I can't even identify with the guy that used to wear a suit and tie, and that was my headshot with the kind of. I mean, I don't say it's a fake smile. It was my smile.
Sure.
I don't know if it's fake. You know what I mean? But the suit and tie wasn't me. That's for sure.
Well, what I find interesting about suit and tie for men, and then these like business suits for women. So the women, it gets real tight around the waist, right? So it's almost like telling the female, like, keep anything below the waist, like it's not meant for work. That emotion, tighten right above it.
Wow.
And for men, we put a tie to our throat. Like, all right, we get to be really intellectual, but it can't be in the heart or anything below the throat.
Whoa.
They're like these unconscious symbols of the workspace of like how you're supposed to behave and control your energy. And now people are showing up to Zoom calls, barely wearing any pants, and they're like, I feel great.
I mean, I stopped wearing suit and tie, I would say about maybe 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. And just little by little by little by little, I just stopped. Like, then I took off my watch. I don't wear watches anymore. I'm like, it's like,
I don't have
it's like, everyone's like, how do you stay organized? I was like, I don't know. Just everything works out the way it's supposed to. No one's been complaining yet. So
and wearing a suit feels richer when you do. Then it's like, oh, look at this nice occasion.
But why do people wear suits like to court? Like whenever you see those things, right? People always wearing a suit and tie to the court, like it's supposed to be show respect to the judge or something.
So they don't go to prison. Yeah. You can't send a guy in a suit to prison. We all know guys in suits don't go to prison.
They just did in Minnesota. The guy was wearing a suit tie. They put the police officer.
That's very true.
Away, so I don't know if that
it's just the unconscious belief, right?
Right. Hey, what could somebody doing right now that's listening to us, right? What's one thing they could do in their life that they could wake up? I mean, obviously meditation is one of it, right? But if they're unable to meditate or whatever, something they could do that could help them get grounded.
Well, maybe we just need to change their definition of meditation a little bit, because it can be intimidating, right? It's like, oh, I close my eyes and there's all this noise. I don't like the feeling. It's so intimidating. Let's just call it self-reflection and self-awareness, right? You're doing it with your eyes open anyway when you're thinking about your life, thinking about your future. So Ray Dalio has a great equation, the investor is just pain plus reflection equals growth. Right? And so and by pain, it could just be resistance, irritation, frustration, uncertainty, doubt, shame, guilt, fear, right? All of these seemingly like negative emotions or feelings. When we close our eyes and we start to reflect, and some of those come up in the forms of thoughts or feelings, it's just a great opportunity to ask, what are you here to teach me? So instead of asking, why are you punishing me, or what is wrong with me, or how come I'm not as calm as somebody else? Why am I not like the Buddha? You're asking the wrong questions. So that maybe you try asking the question, what are you here to teach me? So somebody cut me off. I'm frustrated. What is it here to teach me? I lost all my money in this crypto. What is it here to teach?
Hey, be careful there.
I know.
I got a little bit in there.
Yeah. So what is it here to teach me? If you ask that question, there's a lovely book by the Buddhist monk Pema Chodron called When Things Fall Apart. And that is the question she prompts her students to ask. And I think it's the right question to be asking. What are you here to teach me? And from that, you're going to start asking, well, who am I? And that's when you're going to start discovering yourself. It's as simple as that. You don't have to necessarily do a mantra or breathe a certain way or sit up a certain way. You're just asking, what is this experience here to teach me? And then seeing what arises out of that.
So it's really our perception.
Yeah, you're learning to see. So the word insight, you're seeing in.
Mm-hmm.
You're learning to see in. You're having insight, right? Awakening, enlightenment, samadhi, satori, whatever you want to call it. It's always a light bulb that turns on in a dark room.
Yeah.
I was unconscious of something, now conscious. I was unconscious of who I was, now conscious of who I am. I was unconscious of my pain, now I'm conscious of my development, growth, and the lessons I'm learning from life. So it's a game of turning on the lights.
I like that. Yeah. Well, Dave, listen, we've taken up a lot of your time. You are incredibly generous with your time with us, by the way. I really want to thank you for coming on.
Of course.
I hope we can get you back on here at a later time and maybe talk some more about this.
Yeah, when I need some mortgage advice, for sure.
Dude, please. I mean, I'm yours. Whatever you need. If I can help you out, I am there for you, brother. But once again, thank you so much for coming on Laugh, Lend, and Eat. And I hope you have a good day, Dave.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, before I forget, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Your website is...
Oh, sure. Meditationschool.us. So that's where I teach live. And we're building out an app. It should be out in the next couple months.
I mean, we plug the hell out of Insight Timer. I hope they like that. I mean,
maybe
I get a free 1 year subscription on it. I don't know. But I want to make sure people know how to contact you, right? Because I connected with you on Instagram.
Yeah. And also, so if you need help sleeping, the Grounded Sleep podcast, Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, wherever, I'll try to put you to sleep best I can.
By the way, is that fair? I mean, like I said to you, if I put on a podcast and I fall asleep, should I just continue listening because then I hear it in my head while I'm sleeping?
Yeah, hopefully it has an ending and then it doesn't go to the next track. You don't want that. Next thing you wake up listening to cryptocurrency advice.
Right.
I need to buy more.
Right. Maybe that's what happened that day that I bought some Bitcoin. That solves that mystery.
That's
all right, brother.
It's all good, man.
Thank you so much, and have a great day, Dave. All right?
You too.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Laugh, Lend, and Eat, the podcast. Once again, thank you to our sponsors, First Option Mortgage and One Good One Staffing Services. We have enjoyed all the comments we have been receiving. Please keep them coming. To be notified of any updates, please be sure to subscribe to Laugh, Lend, and Eat on the listening platform of your choice. Thank you for listening and have a great day.